Welcome to the Gripe podcast. In this podcast, we learn how to grow member-based organizations. I'm your host Farhad Khan. I am the CEO of Gripe Digital. We are a digital agency and we help professional associations grow their membership by building membership portals. If you want to grow the membership of your professional association, please take a look at the workshops on our website at gripe.ca/workshops. That is grype.ca/workshops. In this episode, we are joined with Scott Oser. So Scott Oser is a marketing guru. He runs Oser Associates, and he has been working with associations for a very long time, I think over 15 years. So Scott, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you start by telling us a bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure, I appreciate it, Farhad. You actually made me a lot younger than I am. I've actually been working in the association space for over 20 years, close to 25 actually. So I appreciate that. Thank you. It's great to be here. I actually, just a little bit about me personally, I was a long time Washington, D.C. resident, which is where I got into associations, worked on the association staff side for about 10 years before launching Scott Oser Associates 15 years ago. So we're right about at that 25-ish number. I moved out to California about 2 years ago. So I'm actually speaking to you all live from San Diego, California. I had 40 some years in DC and it was enough. So it was time to just move on out here. So enjoying the California weather and enjoying a little bit of different atmosphere, environment, and all is going well.
That's amazing. So Scott, today we're going to talk about post-pandemic marketing. So given that things are opening up slowly right now and people probably have a little more confidence on their marketing and on their organizations, how should we approach marketing moving forward for associations?
I think that we learned over the let me start here. Associations, for lots of reasons, set things and let them run for months at a time, weeks at a time, sometimes years at a time. And the messaging did not change a lot. And I shouldn't say all associations, many associations, because that's with limited resources which most associations have, they needed to figure out a way to get the messaging out, to let it go so that they could focus on other duties as assigned, for other things that popped up, for other responsibilities that they had, because they just simply did not have the resources to do everything all the time. What was identified during the pandemic, and which I don't think it's completely over. I think that we've seen that we're now in some other curious times where it's almost now harder in some ways than it was before because there are so many questions. It's like we went through lockdown and everything else, and lockdown was black and white, right? We knew what was going on. Nobody was going anywhere. Nobody could really do anything. So you could then approach it that way. Now you've got people that are in the offices. You've got people that are out of the offices. You've got people that are working. You've got people that aren't working. You've got people that are reading email. You've got people that are answering phones. You've got people that are not. It's all over the place. So it's actually made it more complicated. But one of the things, an overarching thing that we learned was that time is of the essence, that you need to be very time sensitive with your marketing and your messaging. You need to mix it in with your sort of regular standard messaging, but you also need to let your members know what you are doing for them now. How are you helping them? How are you benefiting them, both from a personal and a professional standpoint? I realize the personal side sounds kind of weird because that's not typically what we do. We don't, as associations, I would say rarely address how are you doing personally? How is your mental health? How are you doing? How are you dealing with something like this pandemic? But I think that now we need to do that. So we need to communicate on two levels, both the personal level and the professional level, but it needs to be in tune with what is going on in the current environment. I'm not saying on a daily current environment unless something big happens, but it needs to be up to date. It can't be something that happened 3 months ago. You can't be using the same messaging. Actually, you may be able to a little bit, but you can't fully use the same messaging that you were using 3 months to 6 months ago. Even though we're still in this pandemic, it's different now. And so we need to make sure that we focus on how we are appropriate and how we are valuable to members based on the current situation.
Right. So I think a lot of associations know how to help their members at a professional level. How would you help them out in a personal level?
I don't know if you can actually, or if you need to actually help them out on a personal level, but I think that you need to address it and you need to let them know that you understand that things might be challenging right now, that their situation might be very unusual. I don't think that most of associations are set up to actually help them, but some offer webinars and things where it's like and I've seen this in my own experience as well with some of the things that I've participated in, that it's not just about professional development anymore. Some of it is personal development. How do you manage your time better? What do you do with burnout? Those kind of things. And where we would typically not go to our association for those, if your audience is looking for it, if the members are looking for it, then it should be something you should consider, either on your own or through a partnership, bringing in the right entities to work with you and provide that information. But I don't think we can really, because our mission is not to solve those personal issues, but we do need to address them because a lot of people are dealing with them.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So then, are there certain areas of marketing we should be focusing on more moving forward? Maybe like more online events or more of something else?
One area that I find really interesting, that I find associations have a lot of room for growth because they aren't doing a lot with it right now, I just define it as digital marketing. So Facebook marketing, LinkedIn, retargeting campaigns, lookalike campaigns, those kind of things, because we are very good at emailing. Associations are very good at emailing. And email is not always the answer because everybody is emailing. When the pandemic hit, I saw this a lot. Groups didn't necessarily have home addresses for folks. They only had office addresses and people weren't in the offices. So what did they do? They emailed more. They didn't have home phone numbers, so they couldn't call anybody. What did they do? They emailed more. So I get it. Email is a cost-effective way to do things, but it's not always a effective way to do things. If it's doing something for free or at a low cost, if nobody opens it or uses it, it doesn't get you any benefit, right? The ROI is not there. So I find the whole digital marketing area really, really interesting because it can be pretty effective from a cost perspective and from a results perspective. It's the only challenge with it is that this is not a skill set that most associations have on staff. So you have to then outsource that. I think that that's really important. I think that another thing when it comes to just education, professional development, obviously the whole digital side of things, the online side of things is critical right now, because even though events have started happening in person, I think they started happening, and then depending on where you are in the country or in which country you're in, they started pulling back again. So, you've got to make sure that you are meeting your members' needs where they are. And so if they're not traveling, if they're not coming to in-person events, you've got to really make sure that you have that availability, of that online digital content so they can take it wherever they are.
Right. So, if an association has not been actively involved in the online platforms or the social media platforms, like, is there a way for them to identify which ones will work better for them?
They really need to, I would say the easiest way is to poll your people, and to, even if you're doing sort of just small drip polls where it's just one question here and one question there, and see where your members live, see where they're playing, because then I think this is not as true anymore because I think we've learned. But the natural reaction for however many of the past years is, well, Facebook's the biggest, so our members need to be on Facebook. Well, that's not necessarily true. If they're looking for professional conversations and they're looking for more things on the professional level, they may be on LinkedIn. They may be on Twitter. I'm not a fan of Twitter, but I find that Twitter, unless you really set it up right and you've got your hashtags and everything else and people are following it, it's rapid fire. It's, you go on there 1 minute, you go back 2 minutes later, and you're in a totally different conversation about totally different things. So from a marketing perspective, unless you're advertising on Twitter and purchasing advertising, I don't know how you really do it unless you really have a strong following. And the best way to find that out is to ask your members. Where are you guys playing? What are you doing? Are you on Facebook? How often are you on Facebook? Are you on LinkedIn? How often? Are you on Twitter? How often are you using it? getting that type of information is going to be important. The only other way to really do it is to take a sample of your members and try and find them on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook and see where they're engaging. The other thing that you could do is look for groups that are based off of the topic or the industry that you work in, and then you can see if there's active conversation going on there. Because if there is, it's pretty likely that your folks are going to be there. And if there's not, then they're probably not going to be there. So that's another way to look at it.
Right, right. Okay. So I think like over the pandemic, people have been doing a lot of webinars, and what we are hearing from some of our like clients is that they're like more likely to do maybe like smaller events moving forward as opposed to like large AGMs. What are your thoughts? Like, what should people do, or like what has worked in your experience?
I think it needs to be a mix. And I know that's not a great answer, but there are different, in my opinion, there are different purposes for different things. I understand that Zoom burnout, whatever you want to call it, online burnout is a thing. And there are some people that are just like, I can't watch another webinar. I can't sit in front of the screen any longer. But ultimately, what that means to me is that they're not finding value in it, right? They're not seeing that it's valuable, because if you need something for your career, even if it is another webinar, but you need it for your career because somebody has done the due diligence to see what is important for you as a member of that community, you're probably going to watch it. Some people are not going to watch it, right? But there are going to be plenty of people who are going to watch it because it's valuable. But again, back to what I was saying, my feeling is that really events, if you want to call them events, webinars, to me, a webinar is not really an event. It's an education opportunity. But you've got webinars, let's just call them events for now. You've got webinars and you've got these larger meetings. I find most of the time that many people, not all, but many people come to these larger meetings for the networking aspects of it. They're not necessarily coming for the education. The education in many ways is a bonus, but what they're coming for is the people. So let those meetings serve that purpose for the people that want to take advantage of that. And then otherwise, use webinars, whether they're very interactive or if they're pre-recorded, it doesn't really matter. You can mix those things up based on your audience needs and what they're looking for, but let them serve another purpose, which is truly education. I find that it's very it's challenging to have true connection online. I realize that now that we're back in this where things are shutting down a little bit again, or maybe soon, that is one of the only ways to get connection. But you need to figure out what that is. And right now is just a snapshot in time where you're forced, and over the last year and a half, you've been forced to do networking and connection online and digital. Not everybody wants that. So, and we're not going to be in this state forever. We're going to hopefully, really hopefully move on past this at some point. And so people who want to connect will go in person, and then people who want to connect digitally and want education, they're going to do that their own way. So you've got to have a mixture of all of these things. Exactly what that ratio is, I can't tell you. I know certain groups are going to much more digital, much less in person. I don't like that. I want to have a reason to go meet people. I want to have a reason to go connect with people. I want to go have a reason to see the colleagues that I've gotten to know over time. And in many associations, that is one of the primary benefits, is getting into the community, getting together with the community. And the best way, I still believe the best way to do that is by face-to-face networking. It's face-to-face in person. It's not digital, even though digital, again, can hold a place. It's not the optimal way to do it.
Right, right. And since we are not actually holding a lot of in-person events yet, so there are still a lot of webinars that are actually happening. Do you have any advice on how we can make our webinars more engaging for our audience, and then maybe like maintain that communication like post, like after the webinar as well?
The best way to do it would be through online communities, or through if you have an active LinkedIn group or an active Facebook group, something like that. That's the best way to do it. The other option that you have is to hold follow-up conversations. If people really want to connect, you can hold follow-up conversations through Zoom, I don't know if anybody's even using conference calls anymore. I actually laugh sometimes because it's kind of like if someone says to me, hey, can we talk on the phone? I'm like, you mean we don't have to use Zoom? Sure, I'm happy to do a conference call because you don't have to, we all many of us work from home now, so we're a little bit more casual than usual. And I'll be honest with you, I've got in my office, I've got to have a ring light in my face. And I'm like, if somebody wants to pick up the phone and just talk to me, and I don't have to turn the ring light on and get that, artificial tan that I've been growing over however many months now, I'm more than happy to just pick up that phone and talk. But I think that is the way to do it is you've got to give people a reason to connect afterwards. You've got to give them the venue to do it, and then you've got to give them a reason. I have noticed this is for recordings as well, and I know this is not true for everybody, but this is recordings as well as ongoing conversations. Unless you've got some form of a deeper commitment, once those events, even including webinars as events, once they're over, people move on. I mean, I know that we all have the best intentions where it's like, all right, there was a big annual conference and I had these overlapping sessions. I couldn't go to them all. I'm going to go back and watch the recordings. I don't go back and watch the recordings. As much as I would like to go back and watch the recordings, you move on to whatever the next thing is. So there has to be something really, really important for you to go back and watch it. Or you have to be fortunate and have a position where you have that availability where you can kind of say, all right, I'm going to take 2 hours or an hour and I'm going to watch these things. But if you can get commitment in advance to, make it sort of like a discussion group after, and you can't, I don't really feel the best move is to require people to do it. But if you let them know in advance that is going to be of value to them, and then they all participate or a large majority participates, it can be very valuable to keep those conversations going.
Right, right. Yeah, so I did attend a conference. It was an all-day conference completely on Zoom. But then, like, even then, the event was so engaging. Like the day just flew by. I think mainly because it was more interactive. So I think like interactivity is key in like engaging people online in the events. So Scott, like, we got this question like from one of our audience as well, and I had the question as well. If you were to design your marketing campaigns, like, how would you design them differently, like for your prospects versus members, or if you have like different like member segments?
Well, I'll give you a really smart, I was going to use a bad word, but I'll give you a real, what I was going to say is the way you design your prospects versus your members is with your prospects, you got to ask them to join, right? That's the big thing is you need those guys to join. So, give you an answer like that. But that's the main delineation is you've got to, with any prospect mailing or email or communication, there needs to be an ask, right? If that is the goal of the number one goal of that effort, you need to have an ask. It can't be buried. It can't be way at the bottom. It should have some urgency. There should be a deadline attached to it so that people know, the recipients know, all right, I'm going to get this when I join by this date. Otherwise, we're all very good at putting things in our inbox, leaving them there and getting around to them another day. And in my opinion, what getting around to them another day means is that you're probably not going to get around to it. You want to attract somebody's attention, and then you want to get them to act ASAP. You don't want them putting it aside. You don't want them waiting for another day, and you've got to give them a reason to do that. So, but on the member side, it's more of a conversation. You're obviously going to be, because associations can't survive without revenue. So there obviously needs to be, we want you to attend our conference. We want you to register for a webinar. We want you to buy this, do that, volunteer for these kind of things. That communication is going to be important, but it needs to be more of a conversation. I mean, I have found that especially now, this has been true for a long time, but especially now, you really need to, I'll use the buzzword, you really need to engage your members in a conversation. You really need to get them, at the ones that want to. You obviously are not going to get everybody. There's going to be members that what we used to call, and I guess you could still call mailboxers, where they want to get their e-newsletters, they want to get a print magazine if you have it, and they're fine and happy to write you a check every year. But there are lots of other members that they want to be involved in a conversation. They want to know that the organization, to the best of their ability, understands them and their needs, and then involves them in conversations with the staff, but also with other members. And so that's the kind of information that you need to focus on. You need to show that, as I was saying before, you need to show the understanding of their current situation. You need to understand their current business needs. lightly. You need to understand their personal needs so you can address them if it becomes important. But that's, to me, is more the types of marketing. And I would say it's almost more communications than marketing when it comes to your members. You need to not always be asking them to do something or asking them to buy something. You need to engage them in conversations, and you need to point out which benefits that you offer that will allow them to become that much more engaged in the association, above and beyond just buying something or registering for something.
Right, right. And I guess like you were saying that we need to engage our members like in the discussion. So there has to be the platform, there has to be discussion groups or maybe like a discussion forum on your member portal there for them to be able to like take part in this. If the channels are not there, no one is going to use them at all because they're just not there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that a member portal, member community is a great way to engage your members in conversations. It's, that's, I was sort of addressing this before with your last question of what can you do after the webinar? Well, let them know that groups exist in your member portal, in your member community that talk about that all the time. The event's over, but you know what? You've got a question about a topic. You've got a question about something that's going on in your industry. You just want to connect with somebody who you may have seen in their tiny little box online. Go to the member portal and find this information, see what's going on, and you can have that ongoing connectedness that you can't have almost any other way. Because even if we were back to person in person, you're only going to see people every once in a while. So this provides 24-hour, 365-day a year access to your community. So I think that it is a very valuable asset to associations, a member portal or member community.
Right. So Scott, like you've been running marketing campaigns for a long time. So do you have any thought on a good balance on like how much communication is too much and like what is enough?
That's going to be different for every group. I always say that if you do what you think that they want, you're probably not doing enough. If you're not getting any opt-outs, if you're not getting any unsubscribes, if you're not getting any complaints on your emails, then you're probably not doing enough, because people have a pretty high tolerance, I think. But it's sort of the way I say in direct marketing in general is if I do a campaign and I don't get at least one or two complaints, it means I probably did not get in enough people's faces, to be honest with you, because not everybody's going to be happy. If you're doing it for a decent volume, for a decent number of people, somebody's going to be upset. And that's not what you're going for. You don't want 20% of your communication to go to people that are all upset. Of course not. But you need to figure out what that balance is, and you're going to upset some people. What you need to then manage if you do upset some people is, depending on who that complaint or it goes to, sometimes if it goes to your boss or it goes to a board of directors member, then the pressure on you is a lot harder. But hopefully you can coach those guys and say, hey, look, you know what? We emailed 10,000. We got 5 complaints. Was it worth it? Yeah, totally worth it. You got to do it. But what I would say is just watch your unsubscribes, watch your open rates. And if you see a trend where they're going down, unsubscribes going up, open rates going down. And I know this is going to get a little bit trickier now with Apple trying to make it harder for you to track open rates and things like that. But I'm sure there will be a new data point that's going to come out at some point on ways that you can do it. But you just need to watch those things. And I would say, if you are willing to take this risk, you can almost continue to add things until you see those rates drop, and until you see that negative behavior happen. I find that's really, really true. They sort of say that in renewals as well. Keep adding renewals until your renewal costs as much as it is to get a new member. So do the same thing with your other communications. Keep adding them. They have to be pertinent, though, right? You don't want to just keep adding for the sense of adding. You need to figure out a reason behind it, and you need to make sure that it's applicable to what your members are dealing with. But you can keep adding, or you may need to subtract. If you find that your open rates and that your click-throughs and that your unsubscribes are going the wrong direction, then you're probably doing too much.
Right, right. So on the other end of the spectrum, we also want to like track conversions. So do you have any particular metrics that you prefer tracking?
On what tactic?
Like for marketing, like for the conversion rates.
Yeah, I think that to me, it's all about ROI. It really is about ROI. I know that that is, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a sec, but I know that that can be challenging sometimes because oftentimes in associations, you have a set budget that you can spend and you have goals. So I think that what you feel, how you interpret your ROI can really be dependent on what you're trying to achieve and what you're able to achieve. And what I mean by that is ROI to me is how much did I spend to do this? And this is the big overarching goal of this, right? How much did I spend to do whatever I needed to do? And what did I bring in? So we're truly talking direct marketing, right? I did a direct mail campaign. It cost me $10,000 to do the direct mail campaign. But wow, I brought in $50,000 in revenue. No brainer, right? But depending on your tolerance level, some associations would say, I'm willing to spend $50,000 to bring in $50,000. Other associations would say, I've only got $5,000 in my budget, so I can't bring in, I don't know what I'm going to bring in. I can only mail $5,000 worth of whatever it might be. So you've got to take a look at that. The other way to do it, it's response rate. I mean, I think that that is the big, to me, what I just mentioned is the big picture. That is your moneymaker right there, is what do I have to spend? How much did it bring in? But you're always looking to make things more effective as well and to make things better. So when it comes to email, you can look at click rates. You can look at how many people then did actually do what you wanted them to do, whether it's join, renew, register. Look at those response rates. Look at those conversion rates. From direct mail is pretty simple. I mailed out 1,000 pieces. I got back 20 of them. So what's my response rate? And then over time, you obviously want your response rate to get better and better, but you need to make sure that you're tracking those rates because then you have a benchmark. You have something to compare it to. So you know you're not just recreating the wheel every time. You're not just starting from scratch every time because you never know. You may have the greatest ideas in the world, but what happens if one time one of those ideas is a flop, right? I think as marketers, we should be always trying new things, and some of them may not work. And so you've got to be able to track those response rates. So I know this is kind of a roundabout way to answer your question, but there's really two different ways to look at it. It's one, am I reaching my my membership revenue goals or my marketing revenue goals? And then the other way is, am I being efficient and effective with the things that I'm doing right now? And sometimes I've seen associations that they're not that concerned about the efficiency and the effectiveness. They're worried about that bigger goal, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It would drive me crazy as a marketer if that was my only goal. But sometimes there are situations where it's like that. Get me $50,000 in revenue, all right? And don't spend more than 10. Okay, it doesn't really matter what your response rate is to a certain extent. Obviously, it does a little bit, but you're not tracking to that detail. You're going a little bit broader. So there are different ways to look at it.
Right, right. So Scott, in an ideal world, like we will send out one email blast and lots of people will just like register for our membership, right? But we know that that does not happen, and then we kind of have to like break it down into many smaller campaigns to like walk our like prospects through the steps and becoming a member. So when someone is investing in campaigns like those, like mini campaigns in between, like from the point of capturing a lead, like on the website or somewhere, and then all the way like to becoming a member. So in their journey in between, like what do you think is important to track?
What's important to track is, well, if you're doing a multi-step campaign, are they getting further down? What you're trying to do is you're getting them further down the funnel. So if they're just showing some interest up front, like they sign up for an e-newsletter because they're interested in that, well, that's great. All right. So how many times do you want to contact them before you then you want to ask them right away, do you want to become a member? But do you need other steps along the way? Do you need to feed them other small pieces of content? Or do you need to feed them a free webinar or something like that, so that way they learn more and more about the association, so that way sooner rather than later, they actually join. So you need that's really what you want to track. And I know that everybody's technology is different, but with automated campaigns, you can now sort of run those kind of campaigns where it's all right. they signed up for the e-newsletter. What's the next thing that I'm going to ask them to do? Okay, well, from there, they then did this. Then what's the next thing that I want to do? And so that sort of marketing can be very effective. It's almost set it and let it play. I think that you need to change it over time. That's why I say it's almost, because you can't leave it there forever. But the good thing is that you can write it once and let it run for a period of time. And if you watch the results and see what's going on and watch the open rates and watch the people that are going from one step to the next, you also ultimately want to get people to join. So even if you're just feeding them a piece of content, you still want to say, hey, do you want to join? Obviously not as bluntly as I just said it, but you need to have a reason to join. You want to get them to join and become members. So those are the things that I would do, is just set it up and watch it and see how people are flowing from one to the other, as well as seeing how many people are joining from the first email you send out versus the second one versus the third one, those kind of things. So that way they flow down that funnel. And if somebody wants to jump right down the funnel on email number one, let them go. You're not going to stop them. Let them go right away. The more of those people you have, the better off you're going to be.
Right. Okay. So, do you have any examples of like freebies like that you can give away to members
To
or to
me,
prospects?
yeah, sure. To me, the key is I grew up. I worked for a couple of publishers for a period of time, and they were associations, but they were publishers. And this was back when, and I think they still do it. Some publishers do this. Some, you'd give away stuff, right? You'd give away a sweatshirt. You'd give away. I worked for National Geographic, so you'd give away a fuzzy stuffed animal of some sort. Those kind of things. I was never a huge fan of that, because to me, that's not why someone's joining an organization. They want it. Most organizations and associations that we work for are professional in some way. They're affiliated with an industry. So give them something that's going to be valuable to them as a participant in your industry. So whether it be a special white paper that you create, whether it be a webinar, whether it be top line access to some research that you've done that they don't get unless they pay for it, even as a member, those kind of things that are value add to their industry and to their education and to their knowledge base, those are the things that I find work well. The other way to go at it, I'm not a fan of discounting. I know that some people discount, and for some people, some associations, it works really well. It comes to economics. I mean, it's funny that we're having this conversation and it all keeps coming back to money, right? It's like, all right, how much are you going to spend and what are you going to get out of what you're spending? And so there are some associations that are willing to look at it and say, look, even though I know that renewal rates on these free trial memberships, or I'm going to discount my membership by 25%, I know that their retention rate is much, much lower. In my financial position, it makes sense for me to do it. I'm going to do it. I don't like it because I think that you can get more bang for your buck by actually giving them more membership for a lower price. And what I mean by that is do a 14 for 12, do a 15 for 12, do something like that where they're in effect getting a discount, but it's not ever really presented as a discount. It's presented as get more membership for the price, right? So you get more, you get extra. And one of the reasons that I like that is because number one, it's more. Number two, it also gives your members more time as a member. So they get to spend more time with you to learn more about the value, to learn more about the benefits. There's also a little renewal side to that as well, where if you're discounting memberships or shortening memberships, they then get their renewal notices that much faster. And that can be a negative as well. But it does come back to economics. But I think that if I were to start, I'd go one of two directions. One, delivering something to them that is valuable to them as a industry professional within the industry, whatever that industry might be, and or maybe even both, giving them some sort of an extended membership offer where it's 14 months for the price of 12, 15 months for the price of 12, something like that. So they have longer exposure and their initial outlay is the same as it would be anyways. That's the other issue with a discount offer, is that oftentimes when they come up for that second renewal, or that first renewal, they'll go, wait a minute, last year I paid $75. Why now is it $100? Well, don't you remember we discounted you last year? We're not discounting you this year. Yeah, no, I didn't find enough value in it to pay the $100. It was worth $75 for me. It wasn't worth $100. So no, I'm all good. So those are the two sort of recommendations I would give.
Right, right. And for my next question, you already answered like part of it, but I'm going to ask it anyways because I want to get like more into it. We find that it's usually a lot harder to actually sign up a new member than to keep an existing member, right? So how would you design the member experience throughout the year, or like the events for members, so that like you are able to actually increase the retention rates like way more than what you're doing right now?
I think that one of the keys, and I've had some experience doing this with associations, is, and I mentioned this already, is get outside of the we want you to do this, we need you to buy this, always hand in wallet or hand in volunteer pocket or whatever it might be, and try to communicate with them. Try to bring as many people as you can into the community. Make it a conversation with them. Make it so that they're involved in much, they're not a purchaser. I think that one of the reasons I like associations is that I do believe that membership, our kind of membership, not Costco membership, not American Express membership, not, go to your local pizza joint and join their member club, not that kind of membership, but our kind of membership is it is truly a community. And not everybody is going to join to be part of the community, but a lot of people want to be part of that community. And a lot of the value you provide, whether it's expertise, whether it's access to people who have expertise, whatever it might be, it's because they want to be part of an organization, part of a community. And so you need to make sure that you're not just promoting all the time about all the great stuff that you have, but also providing value and also bringing people into your community so that they feel that value and they feel like they belong to something. If a member feels like they belong to something, the likelihood of renewal is going to be so much higher than the member who feels like they're purchasing something or they're just there to get a discount on something. So my suggestion is that the more you can create that feeling, whether it's just by some warm and fuzzy messaging, some warm and fuzzy emails, hey, checking in on you, want to make sure everything's cool. Oh, by the way, this just happened in the industry. Wanted to make sure I shared this with you. Whatever it might be to create sort of that warm and fuzzy connection, it's going to go a long way.
That's great. That's great. So, Scott, I'm going to jump into some of the audience questions that we received online earlier before the event. Um, So Dina Seidenberg is asking, I want to get our members to get more engaged in our mentoring program. They kind of like start, they enroll, but then after that, like they stall in taking action. What can you do to get people like more engaged in the mentorship program?
I think the key is that you need to set expectations on both sides and you need to give them some guidelines and help. I think unfortunately with a mentor program, if the mentee doesn't want to become engaged, there's not really much you can do. I mean, I wish I had some brilliant tips for you, for everybody, but if the mentee signs up because they think it would be a good thing, but then somewhere along the road, they just go, yeah, this isn't really doing anything for me. It may not be the mentor's fault. It may not be the association's fault. It just may be that the mentee has not bought fully into it. I had a mentee not too long ago. I guess we're still sort of in a mentor-mentee relationship. We haven't talked in probably 9 months because the last time we talked, he said, I'll reach back out to you in a month or so and we'll reconnect. All right, is it on me to continually reach out to him as the mentor? I don't think so. And I have reached out to him a couple of times, but I just haven't heard anything back. So I'm like, all right, I guess this didn't work for him. I don't take it personally, but I guess it didn't work for him. But I think that the more structured you can make the program at the beginning, so say we're going to have monthly meetings. It may be in person if it's possible. It may be virtual. It may be on the phone. It may be by Zoom. It may be whatever you want. But set up those expectations in advance. And then I think if it fizzles out, it kind of fizzles out. I think that both sides, the mentor and the mentee, need to have their expectations set for them before it starts. But sometimes it's going to fizzle out. Sometimes it may not be a good fit. And that needs to be explained at the beginning as well. If, we're assigned to each other and for whatever reason our personalities don't click, no hard feelings. That's okay. Find me somebody else. No, everybody knows that it's got to be a good fit because it truly is a relationship.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. And just to add to that as well, I guess like we also have to make sure that we design our program so that they are not like asking a lot from the members in general. For example, if you're asking someone to like sign up for a 1 year mentorship program where you have to join 12 meetings in the year, one per month, that may be asking a lot from a member who's very busy. So sometimes like designing like shorter programs, like you said, like more structured, like knowing what the expectation is, shorter programs that are like easier for people to take in may be better. Alrighty, so Scott, moving on to the next question. This is Emily Nain. She's asking, is there value in providing content unrelated to your organization, but that are valued by your market sector?
Yeah, I think if you haven't gotten this out of the conversation we've had already, then I missed something. But yeah, you have to provide content to your members. It's not all about what the association does. I have read a couple of books about this, and it's sort of like you need to figure out what their why is. You need to figure out why they are a member of the association, what their needs are. It's not about you as the association, it's about your members. So providing the right content to them at the right time can be a huge value. And I know that we are sort of in a content marketing world now that we're playing in. So yeah, the more you can provide valuable information and valuable content or education to your members, I think the better off you're going to be. It helps them in their profession, but it also makes it so that it doesn't seem like you're just promoting all the time, because you don't want to be promoting all the time. I know we've got revenue goals for our meetings, we've got revenue goals for our webinars, we've got advertising revenue goals, we've got all these revenue goals, but we've got to serve our membership first and foremost, because if you don't serve your membership and you don't have members, then nobody's going to be doing any of the other things. So you've got to actually provide valuable content to them. And that goes back to sort of what I was saying earlier, which is knowing what's important to them right now. Not every industry was fully altered or majorly altered by COVID, but a lot were. So, the more guidelines and things, if that's appropriate to your industry, that you can provide that are up to date, that are new, the better off you're going to be, because that may be information that you are able to provide that they may not be able to get somewhere else. So it reinforces your value.
Right. So Scott, like, where would you draw the line? Like, as in, like, whether the content is totally unrelated, maybe a recipe, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on your culture in some ways. Because Farhad, I'm sure you saw this too with some of the online events. It's like you'd go to an online event and all of a sudden there'd be a magician, right? And I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't sign up to see the magician. I wanted to see the content on whatever the topic might be. And then they've got a magician. But that obviously is part of their culture and some of what their members were potentially looking for. So I think that there are different types of communications that you can use. And maybe, to use your example, maybe some of the feel good is a recipe, something like that. Hey, you know what? We're thinking about you. We know that it's now more important than ever to eat healthy. Here's a recipe you can try, right? Some associations may look at me like I'm crazy, and it may be crazy in some organizations because that would be the last thing that they would want to do, and that's not in their membership culture. But other associations, if it is that much more personal, and like I could totally see, I participate a bunch with ASAE and also CalSAE. I could totally see both of those guys doing that, going, look, we're worried about your health. We're worried about you as a person. Here's a recipe that you can check out. But there are certain other ones where it's like, no, don't cross that line, because that's not what we do. That's not what our members are looking for. And so back to resources, you're just wasting your time and spending resources that you don't really have.
Right, right. Okay, makes sense. So next question is from Laurel Simmons. Do you have any strategy or advice on like how we can re-engage lapsed members?
I have a really simple one, and that's make sure you don't stop reaching out to them. Make sure that you're reaching out to them. A couple of ideas that I have are, if you have a non-member newsletter, a non-member version of your newsletter, or you're able to create a non-member version of your newsletter, send it to them with a note that says, hey, you know what? You're now getting the non-member version because you didn't renew your membership. Don't you want to get the full content? Don't you want to get up to the minute important information? Don't you want to get this? Don't you want to get that? And continue to give them some valuable content, but not what they'd get as a member. And then the other thing that really that works is having set win back or lapsed member campaigns. You've got to continue to reach out to them. It may be that you have a point where they're too far gone, and then you don't want to reach out to them anymore. But a year, 2, sometimes 3 years, those folks will come back, but they're not going to come back on their own. You've got to reach out to them. You've got to communicate with them. You've got to let them know that you want them back. And one of the things that I always recommend with win-back campaigns, because most folks, when you're doing win-back campaigns, if they've been gone for a period of time, they still are familiar with your association. They're a good, decent number will come back. It'll still perform much better than it will with a cold prospecting, new member campaign. So another reason to do it. But then let them know the great things that you're still doing that they loved when they were a member, but also let them know what's new and make it obvious. Look, we've got these new things for you. We've got these great new things that will add more value to your membership. We've got these things that you didn't get before that you're going to get now. Those kind of things, that kind of messaging can really, really work because they're familiar enough, but new stuff has happened. As time has marched on, new stuff has happened, especially now with COVID and the new messaging that I was talking about earlier. Much more new stuff has happened. The other thing with lapsed members is try different ways to connect with them. We're all, as I mentioned earlier, we're all really good about sending emails. But what about picking up the phone? What about picking up the phone and saying, hey, you know what? We miss you. You haven't been a member in over a year. We'd love to have you back. Or your membership expired last month. We'd love to have you back. Did you and this is unfortunately one of the answers you get on a regular basis, I forgot. So did you forget to renew? Oh yeah, I just forgot. All right, cool. Well, I will take your renewal right now. Don't let them get off the phone. Take their renewals over the phone, do whatever you can. But that lapsed member group, unfortunately, is overlooked sometimes, but it can be a very, very good group to go after.
That's a really good advice, Scott. So our next question is from Savian L. Savian is asking, how can I create a distributed model of communication where a lead can actually coordinate discussion with a number of volunteers or members?
I read that question because you provided the questions to me in advance, and I didn't totally understand it. But what I think they are trying to say is, how do we get maybe chapters or partners to reach out to prospects and close them, is what I think that was getting at. So I apologize if that's not, that I'm not going to answer the question correctly, but that's the question I'm going to answer because that's the way I understood it. And I think what you need to do is, number one, you need to get the right volunteers or the right network of people to help you. That's your number one starting point. You can't give, even if it's the best script in the world, even if it's the best materials in the world, you can't give it to somebody or give them to somebody who really is not that type of person that they can have a conversation and do the outreach. So you've got to find the right people. You've got to get them to commit as much as you can. You may need to reward them in some way. I'm not saying it needs to be financial. Some of it could just be recognition. Bob brought in 10 members last month. Let's put that in the magazine, whatever it might be. But then once you get their commitment and you find the right people, you've got to arm them so that they have what they need to close those deals. Because the last thing you want is to set somebody free and go, all right, go out there, go to it. And then what happens is they don't have the information they need to be able to recruit. And so you've got to provide that, whether it's a brochure or a PDF, or oftentimes we actually do some telemarketing ourselves for lapsed member campaigns, renewal campaigns, and things like that. And the second thing I ask for after a very good script is, give me some FAQs. What are the questions that these people are going to answer? And sometimes you get weird ones. And so if you get the weird ones, it's always like, all right, I got to get back to you on that one. But there are typical questions that they're going to be asked. And so you need to let the people that are doing the selling for you or doing the membership recruitment for you have that information in advance. It doesn't have to be 20 pages. It probably should not be more than a couple of pages of what are those major questions that people are going to ask, because oftentimes they are asking the same questions. It's, all right, when does my membership year start? All right, does it start the 30th of the month or does it start today? If I pay for you today, what's the deal? So you've got to be able to answer those questions so that you don't have to keep getting back to people, because number one, it's not a good use of their resources, the person who's doing the prospecting, but it also can, it doesn't leave a really good tone with the person you're calling if all of a sudden you're like, all right, I don't know the answer to like 12 of those questions you answered, and they're basic questions. Let me get back to you. You need to make it be as fluid as possible and as complete as possible. And the best way to do that is provide that information to whoever you're having call for you.
Alrighty. So Scott, since we're running out of time, do you have like one key takeaway for our audience for today, like to actually design their post-COVID marketing campaigns?
I think the key right now, and I'm curious to see if this goes on long term, but I think the key is really be current. Be current in your messaging, be current and consistent. So be current in your messaging, communicate with your members on a consistent basis, not always about sign up for our webinar, not always about buy this, do that, but more along the lines of providing information and value to them. And you need to stay current on their why, on what they are looking for, what their needs are, what their current areas of focus are, and providing that kind of information to them. Because it's very, very valuable, especially right now, to let your members know that you understand. It is always, but I think it's even more so right now, that you understand what they're dealing with and what they're going through, and communicate that to them and provide the tips, the tricks, the resources that you can to help them deal with their current situation.
That's great. Scott, I have two quick rapid fire questions for you before we wrap up. Can you tell us about a personal habit that has contributed the most to your success?
I guess you could say my running is one of them, because it has showed me that I need to sometimes you got to push through the pain, whether it's personal or whether it's work. And so I actually run quite a bit, and I did a half marathon not too long ago, and it was painful, but at least it showed me that I can get through it and do it. And so sometimes with work, there's all these challenges going on with COVID and everything else. Sometimes that can be pretty painful. So you got to push through and just keep on going, and then everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, I'm a half marathon runner as well, so I can totally relate to that. And can you share a digital tool or a strategy that makes you effective in your work?
That makes me effective? Yeah, I try to be as organized and as consistent as I can during my work day. So it's sort of, I calendar out almost everything. Like I even calendar out my runs during the week. So it's like, all right, what days am I going to run? What days am I going to go to the gym? Do all those kind of things. So that way I know that there's time set aside that I can be productive and I can get a lot done. I try to turn off notifications and things like that so I don't get interrupted on a regular basis. But it's really just trying to be as scheduled as I can. Some people who probably live with me would probably say I'm a little too rigid, but I find that that's the only way I'm going to get through everything. So it's figure out what you need to do, make sure that you schedule as much as possible. You've got to obviously be open to changes and alterations because they're going to happen. But I find that at least having that baseline, I can get much more done than I would otherwise.
I love that. So what you're saying is actually set aside and allocate the time on your calendar so you don't get distracted by anything else for the things that really matter.
Exactly.
Great. So Scott, how can people reach you if they have more questions?
The easiest way is my website, and for good or bad, my website is scottoserassociates.com. So that's one way. Otherwise, email scott@scottoserassociates. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Those are actually easy for me because I got Scott Oser at all of them. So if you look up Scott Oser on any of those, you can find me. Otherwise, the easiest thing is just to email me. Email me at scott@scottoserassociates.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions, help in any way that I can.
Alrighty, Scott, thank you so much for joining us today. It was amazing. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today. That was the episode with Scott Oser. I learned so much from this episode myself. And once again, if you want to grow the membership of your professional association, please take a look at the workshops on our website at gripe.ca/workshops. And for sure, if you have any questions for Scott, please reach out to Scott anytime that you can. Alrighty, thank you so much for joining us today. Bye for now.